So yeah, today I want to talk about a nature-based approach to remediation of lakes, ponds, wells, rivers, and potentially oceans as well as wastewater treatment plants. I'm from Nualgi Nanobiotech in Bangalore, India. We are a research company that also manufactures nanotechnology products to enable water treatment as well as agriculture. In the field of water, we have a nature-based in situ rejuvenation product. And we have a separate product that's optimized for aquaculture ponds, another product for STPs, and a product called the beneficial culture product. So we have a beneficial culture product that basically allows people to build up bacterial cultures on site. So they don't have to necessarily buy loads and loads of microbes from different companies in order to do bioremediation of their water bodies. So this is basically a product that enables a small microbe factory essentially on site at a far reduced cost.
Wow.
We also are working in the field of agriculture. We have a couple of different products in this space. We have a product that's sprayed on the leaves called foliar spray that boosts photosynthesis and increases yields. We have a separate product called soil health to basically improve oxygen in the root zone and therefore increase the porosity, increase earthworms, and increase microbial activity. So when these products are used together, it's possible to do agriculture with little to no fertilizers. So that's the ambition of our agriculture product, and it's being used by farmers in India. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. We have a separate product called the Nualgi turf, and this is for enhanced turfs in sports stadiums and golf fields and so forth. The company was started by Mr. Sampath Kumar, who is a serial entrepreneur and an inventor of the products that we have here. This company was founded in 2005, and there have been a number of years spent in R&D, validation in the field environment, and since this is a very nature-based product, it requires different types of studies and different kinds of field environments. And the product has been optimized for the different environments, and it has been validated by a number of customers across geographies. Mr. Madhu is the chief manager of the company. He's been with the company since its beginning, and a previous company set up by Mr. Sampath Kumar. I joined the company full-time in 2022. I was with the company on an informal basis for a much longer time from the beginning, but I joined formally in 2022. I was previously with a solar photovoltaic company called Fennis Energy, also known as Sun Edison, also in the United States. So this company, I was there for a couple of years working on advanced research and development. I also worked at General Electric, both in the research and the power business, as well as Lawrence Livermore National Lab in California for about 6 years. Prior to that, I did my PhD at Stanford and undergraduate studies at Brandeis University.
Wow, you've really touched on a lot of key influencers.
Yeah. So in terms of the problems that we're addressing, all the different problems that we are tackling are really well known to you and to the community that you're a part of, and you're really doing a lot of work to tackle them. And we know that the underlying causes for all the visible problems that we see are excess nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur compounds, and there are a lot of heavy metals, low levels of dissolved oxygen, high levels of suspended organics and sludge, as well as missing species in the aquatic food pyramid. So these are the sort of problems at a technical level that is causing much bigger visible problems that we're all very concerned about. The underlying causes, just to illustrate it in a different way in terms of technology, in terms of science, when you have a lot of excess suspended organics, you have a lot of, what happens in nature is that you have a lot of aerobic bacteria that comes about in order to diminish it, right? A lot of the excess NPKs compounds also get into the body of green and blue-green algae and cause their growth. But when those algae grow, you have less penetration of light, which reduces oxygen production, right, due to photosynthesis. What additionally happens is that when these plants die, they also put a greater demand on, in order to break them down, you have growth in aerobic bacteria, which also increases the demand on oxygen, right? So as a result, the combination is that you have very reduced levels of oxygen in the water body, and they're very fluctuating in nature. The consequences of all of this is that you have mass fish kill, you have a lot of ammonia and toxins being released into the fish, you have low levels of oxygen, which again sometimes leads to anaerobic condition and smell due to the bacteria that produce hydrogen sulphide. And you have incomplete breakdown of different kinds of volatile organic compounds, which causes drinking water to smell, right? So this is really, really a big problem. And this is something that you are all really well aware of. So the way we have approached the solution is an entirely nature-based way. So what we have said is that, look, you already have all of these excess compounds. What can we do to ensure that they don't get into the body of the green and blue-green algae, right? Because the blue-green algae are basically living off of that. So we discovered that there's a well-known algal species called diatoms, and it's present in every water body. Its walls are made of silica. It absorbs silica and other nutrients in the environment to fuel its own growth. It requires very little light for photosynthesis. And because of that, it can grow in very deep waters. And it's an important part of the aquatic ecosystem, which means that it's readily eaten by zooplankton and quickly gets absorbed into the body of fish. And the diatoms, most importantly, constitute more than 25% of the food base in water bodies. So it can be somewhere between 25 and 50%, depending on the water body that you're talking about. So what we have done is basically come up with a technology and a nanonutrient technology to accelerate the growth of diatoms in water bodies. And when this happens, the most of the nutrients, since they're getting into the body of the diatoms, they're less available to allow the green and the blue-green algae to grow, right? So over sustained experiments, what we have seen is that the blue-green algae diminish in population over a period of time, right? And because of that, you have reduced oxygen demand, because when you grow diatoms, they quickly get consumed at night, and so they don't really need oxygen to breathe because they've already been consumed by zooplankton. And because the diatoms are able to exist throughout the water column, they produce a lot of oxygen. The oxygen that they produce is in the form of nanobubbles, and nanobubbles, as you know, have a very long residency time in water, right? And because of this, you essentially are able to have sustained levels of oxygen at a very high level throughout a water body that is treated, that is diatom dominated, essentially. So if you have a diatom dominated water body, you're able to create a situation where you have high levels of dissolved oxygen and sustained levels of dissolved oxygen throughout the water column. So what we are, this is basically saying the same thing in a different way, illustrating the aquatic food pyramid and the different species that are involved. Just another point that I wanted to make in the context of the aquatic food pyramid is that zooplankton, which is an important predator of diatoms, it not only eats diatoms, but it also eats a lot of the mosquito larvae and pathogenic bacteria. So a water body that is diatom dominated sees higher and higher levels of zooplankton and lower levels of mosquitoes and pathogenic bacteria. So there's an automated cleanup mechanism that is present in water bodies that have a really solid foundation, right, in terms of plants and helpful algal species.
Yeah, and could you just add any comments around its impact on the sediment, the muck in the water body at the
Yes,
same time?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So what we've noticed is that since the diatoms are able to survive very deep in the water bodies, they are able to create high levels of dissolved oxygen at the sediment, at the lake bed, essentially. And that results in the breakdown of organic material that is part of the sludge, right? So we have seen that in drains where you have treatment through Nualgi, there is a breakdown in the levels of the lake, essentially. So the level of the water body just goes down, right, month by month as this happens. We have seen that visually, although we haven't gone through a study to quantify it. We have, and that's one of the goals for us as we work with you and your network, is to conduct more studies, quantitative studies, to validate these things. But we have seen it in the lakes that we have tested the product in.
Right, measuring the sediment levels in addition to the oxygen,
Yes,
the hypoxia.
I mean, I've personally measured how the oxygen levels at the sediment at the lake bed go up over a period of time when you treat the body with Nualgi, right? So as the sediment gets as the sludge gets broken up and cleaned up, the demand on oxygen at the lake bed starts going down, and the dissolved oxygen levels start to rise. Right. So I've seen that personally in the studies that I've done in the lakes here in Bangalore.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you, Arun.
Yeah. So Nualgi, just to tell you a little bit more about the product. The product comes in 1 liter bottles consisting of about 30 grams of nutrients. The nutrients are nano-sized particles. About 12 different minerals are involved. They're all encapsulated with silica. Silica, as you know, is an important requirement to accelerate the growth of diatoms. The diatoms are made of silica cell walls, and when we give silica as part of the package, they're naturally attracted to the diatoms and fuel their growth. As you may know, the other algal species have cellulose cell walls, so they are not attracted by the minerals that we put into the water and the Nualgi nutrients. So the Nualgi product essentially selectively accelerates the growth of diatoms, right? And it doesn't get absorbed by any other species, simply because of the way it's packaged with silica. And that's the key point, I think, to sort of understand. The product itself has no biological materials, steroids, hormones, or heavy metals. And it's been certified as being non-toxic to fish by the Indian Institute of Toxicology Research, right? So we've worked with the Indian government bodies and gotten permission to use them in the Indian context in the public water bodies. So our understanding is that by enhancing the base of the aquatic food pyramid, we can trigger the complete rejuvenation of the water body over a period of time.
Very
In terms of,
interesting. And I just like to acknowledge I'm not the scientist, but the
yeah,
connector. So I want to share this with our um, chemists and limnology folks within Global Waterworks. But
yes,
continue going. It's
yeah,
very helpful
sure.
presentation.
In terms of implementation, it's quite easy. The first step when you want to implement Nualgi in the context of lakes is to, if possible, remove some of the surface plants and weeds from the water body mechanically. This allows more photosynthesis and better, because there's more light penetration into the water. And higher levels of dissolved oxygen. So to the extent that you can remove those surface plants, it's great. But if you can't, you can still get started. Right? The step number 2 is to sort of deploy sensors in different parts of the lake to be able to measure dissolved oxygen and adjust the dosing until the levels of dissolved oxygen are at the target levels. Then what you could do is to basically set up drums or in which you would fill it up with water and put in a certain amount of Nualgi into it, depending on the lake water volume, and then simply spray it. Right, so you would just spray it along the periphery, and if the lake is too big, you would find some way of getting onto a boat and maybe spraying the interiors of the lake. So, and if you can't do either of these, then you just sort of, you can use drones if you want. You can spray from drones. And if the lake is too big and you're really not able to get into the lake interior, then you can sort of spray along the periphery and wait a little bit longer for the nutrients to sort of disperse and sort of get accumulated in all parts of the lake. So that is also possible because oxygen has the tendency to sort of diffuse from places of higher concentration to lower concentration. So the nutrients will also move with the current, and oxygen will also diffuse. Right? So.
And could you address the typical rejuvenation duration?
Yeah.
How do you characterize rejuvenation?
Yes, so we typically conduct 4 to 6 month campaigns where we rejuvenate lakes, we do about 10 spray sessions spread out over those 4 to 6 months. The amount of dosing that's required is about 1 liter of our product for approximately 2 to 4 million liters of water, right? So the amount of our product is really actually a function of how many kilograms of nitrate or phosphate do you want to remove, right? So and that's sort of a product of the concentration times the lake volume, right? So the amount of product that you need to remove a certain amount of phosphate that we think of as excess, is the real way to think about it. But just to give you a ballpark, we typically need about 1 liter of our product for 2 to 4 million liters of water, right? So that's about 500,000 gallons to about 1 million gallons in that terminology. So you would typically dose the lake every 2 weeks and do that for about 4 to 6 months. If you have different inlets into the lake, and then in order to calculate the treatment water volume, you would basically add up the amount of water that's already there and the amount that is sort of coming into that water body, during that 4 to 6 month period to calculate the total volume that you're treating, right? So, and use that as a basis for estimating the Nualgi quantity that is required. After 6 months, you should see that The water parameters should be much better than what they were when they started. You can expect probably 70% reduction in the BOD, COD, and nitrates and phosphates, and a dramatic improvement in the dissolved oxygen level, both in the surface and at the sediment, at this, where the sludge is. So, the parameters are going to get progressively better. And, in about 4 to 6 months, you can see measurable improvements, right? So there are intermediate points in time during the rejuvenation phase where, you're sort of breaking up the sludge, and some of the sludge comes up into the suspended state before it's completely chewed up by aerobic bacteria. So if, there are times when the BOD and the COD parameters could sort of go in the opposite direction from the direction in which you would like, because you're sort of bringing up all the, the past sins, so to speak, so they become more visible.
Yeah, that's a very helpful reminder that the data doesn't always move in a straight trajectory.
Yes. So it's, but but it's going to get better. And we've seen that in the lakes that we've treated. Slowly and steadily, the blue-green algae population will go down. The green algae population goes down. The diatoms, they go up, and they don't go up that much because they're consumed at night every day. So you won't necessarily measure big increases in diatoms and see a straight line going up in terms of diatoms because they get quickly incorporated into the fish. But you will see more fish, and the fishermen will be happy if they happen to be around, right? And it will become a better and better place for fishing.
Yeah, great. And I would love your thoughts. So the measurements at the start are on dissolved oxygen and then nitrates and phosphorus. Well, what do you recommend be captured in the initial measurement? And then at the end, we're actually going through this.
So you would typically capture the BOD, the biological oxygen demand, chemical oxygen demand, nitrates, phosphates, total suspended solids, that is the TSS parameter. And if there are other compounds, sulfates, that you're concerned about, you can look at that as well. So there is a list of about 23 or 25 parameters that one can track. But these are some of the most important ones, right? So there's, and we can sort of discuss that offline if that's, maybe share an email about that. There's lots of parameters, but these are the most important ones, right? People want to reduce nitrates, phosphates, and the organic solids, right? Both in the suspended state and in the sludge. So you can measure all of this. So after the rejuvenation period, when the parameters are sort of what you would like, then you can continue to spray the lake once a month. And additional spraying will be required if there's additional inlets, additional inflow, right, of polluting liquid, polluting water, right? So if there's if there's no inflow, then you can just leave the water body, and the entire natural cycle will sustain itself. But to the extent that you have additional inflow, then you might need a little bit of a booster, on an occasional basis.
Right.
And that's something that you can decide based on measured levels of dissolved oxygen. As long as the oxygen levels are good, you know that nature will take care of it, right? That that it's a diatom-dominated environment, and the natural nutrient recycling process will ensure the sustainability of that water body.
Yeah, excellent. I'm just conscious of time. I want to make sure we get to some of your case studies if you have them.
Yeah, sure. So this is, I guess we all talked about this already, the maintenance timeline. We have a similar, protocol that we follow for treating drains and rivers. We can treat drains and rivers as well. We just need to ensure that you treat a few miles upstream of the location where you would like to see an improvement in parameters, and allow for 8 to 10 hours of residence time. So that's the important point that I wanted to make in the context of drains. You can basically start dosing from the banks of the drain. You'll need about half a liter per MLD of flow.
Okay.
And allow for 8 to 10 hours where the nutrients mix with the water before you measure the water quality, right?
Right.
So the longer the residence time, the better it will be. But this is sort of the minimum that we sort of suggest. So you may need more mixing time. You may need a little bit less mixing time. So that it all depends on the water body, and it needs to be there needs to be trials, right? Because every drain is different. There's different levels of sludge in the drain and different levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. But essentially what I'm suggesting here is that by treating the drains upstream of where they would meet the lakes, we can ensure that the lakes themselves don't see any excess nutrients going forward. And therefore, we can reduce the probability that there are basically blue-green algae blooms in that lake. We can do a similar treatment of rivers before they meet the ocean, and prevent dinoflagellate blooms or blue-green algae blooms in the oceans.
Or
So
sort of
yeah.
accelerating the sewage treatment process through the actual flow of water. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So so the diatoms are an important way of generating oxygen, because not only do they allow the bacteria to break up organics, but they also take up the nutrients that we wish to remove from the water, right? And the point that I wanted to make is that the excess nutrients. This is the only technique that I know that once and for all removes the nutrients from the water. Because once they get into the diatoms, they eventually become part of the fish. And if the fish are taken away from the water, essentially what you've done is you've taken the excess nutrients away from the water, right? So to my knowledge, there's no other technology that actually removes the problem from the water, right? So there are a lot of different approaches, but the excess nutrients haven't gone anywhere, right? They're either brought down to the lake bed, or they're converted into something else. But most of the technologies that I'm aware of, they sort of stay there, right? But this is the way in which nature actually has designed to remove excess pollution from the water itself. Right? So yeah, so this is just an example of how you would treat a drain. In practice, you would put a dosing station on the banks of the drain and simply allow the product to drip into the drain or river continuously, right? So drop by drop, you have the nutrients that have been diluted into the plastic tank to drip into the drain and stimulate the growth of diatoms. Yeah, so I think I will stop there with the discussion on lakes and drains. We've got different timelines on which you can expect to see different results. We can discuss that later.
Those are pretty speedy results, yeah.
Yeah. And then we also have a treatment protocol for STPs, sewage treatment plants. So in the context of STPs, what we are offering is a way to reduce the dependency of the STP operator on aerators, right? Mechanical aeration, right? So currently, most STPs have blowers, and they bring in air from outside. As you know, most of the air that they bring in outside is nitrogen, only 20% is oxygen. The air that comes in is also in the form of macro bubbles that quickly leave the water. As a result of that, the dissolved oxygen in a sewage treatment plant is typically clamped at about 6 milligrams per liter. I haven't seen mechanical aeration achieve higher levels of oxygen. So the effectiveness of the treatment is also limited by the amount of oxygen that one is able to bring to bear on the treatment bodies, right? So what we're offering is a way to quickly increase oxygen levels in a completely natural way, right? That obviates the need for mechanical aeration. So if we were to put our product into the collection tank of an STP, then as the water moves from tank to tank, we're able to stimulate diatoms, produce nanobubbles of oxygen, all naturally, right? And allow aerobic breakdown of those suspended organics and the sludge to happen. So the treated water also has high levels of dissolved oxygen, and that's a benefit for the communities that receive that water. It could be aquatic communities or soil communities if the water is used for irrigation. In both cases, the downstream consumers of the water would benefit from a water that has very high levels of dissolved oxygen.
Of course, yeah.
So in terms of technology, we have a product that is a TRL9. It can be combined with instrumentation hardware that is also commercially available. I think the commercial hardware is also evolving, right? So there are some real-time systems and more parameters that are coming online. So that's an evolving field. So we are able to leverage the best of what is commercially available and integrate our solution with that hardware to give a full solution to the customers. So, so just in summary, the point, what we're saying is that this product essentially triggers the rapid in situ growth of diatoms, and due to photosynthesis, dissolved oxygen goes up quickly. That immediately results in anaerobic bacteria diminishing and smell going away. It causes the aerobic bacteria to multiply and allows the BOD, COD, TSS, turbidity, and the sludge to be reduced. As we know, as part of the photosynthetic growth of diatoms, a lot of the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and the silica, amorphous silica compounds are absorbed. And since they're absorbed, they're less likely to stimulate the growth of blue-green algae, right? So you've now created a strong competitor to blue-green algae as well. So, there are, So finally, there's an added benefit. You also have benefits in terms of growth in zooplankton populations and therefore the elimination of mosquitoes and pathogenic bacteria. So what we're essentially claiming and we've demonstrated is that Nualgi is sort of a unique foundational product that gives high dissolved oxygen. The PCB, the Pollution Control Board, mandated water quality at a significantly lower cost, right? Because we're completely relying on nature to do the job of cleanup, right? And we're only having to do that because it's, you've sort of intervened and put in a lot more excess nutrients than what it was designed to compensate for, right? So by stimulating the base of the aquatic food pyramid, we're able to strengthen nature when it needs us most.
Yeah. So. And at the start, you showed a before and after in a Florida situation. Could you just speak to 2 to 3 of your most impactful implementations, if there are things that we could look at?
So let me. I'm going to demonstrate to you. I'm going to first show you a photo. sorry, a small video that we took. Are you able to see my screen?
I can. Yeah, it's showing in the slide view right now. But
Okay.
wow. Okay.
Okay. So this is the Kubum River in the city of Chennai in India. Um, it's about 300 kilometers east of Bangalore. So this is a river in which it's a really polluted drain, right? So it stinks. And for decades, there's been no way of cleaning it up. There aren't enough treatment plants to sort of treat the water before putting it into the river. So there are a lot of houses and there's a lot of living, right, that happens on the banks of this river. And it eventually goes into the Bay of Bengal, right, which is part of the Indian Ocean.
Mhm.
So what we did is that we sort of cultured new algae on the banks of the river, and we created diatoms, and we sort of dosed this drain for about a month. This is a picture of what happens when you dose something with new algae. Diatoms grow and oxygen starts growing. The oxygen stimulates the aerobic bacteria to multiply. That bacteria goes down to the sludge and breaks it up, right? So there are big slabs of sludge on the bottom that has been accumulated. That, once it breaks up, it sort of comes up to the top, and it eventually gets broken up there, and then it disappears, right? So this is a video of what can happen when you um, aggressively treat a really, really polluted water body with new algae and stimulate the growth of diatoms. We were able to see that in about a month, we saw a marked decline in the water level, um, simply because the amount of sludge in that portion of the drain that was treated had been reduced, right?
Mhm.
So that was, we haven't quantified this, but we've seen it with our own eyes, and we've seen this in multiple water bodies. We're convinced that it does happen.
Yeah, so then you really do need to prepare constituents nearby so that
Yes.
they're aware when it starts looking worse, it's actually getting better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there are going to be times that you can see that the sludge sort of you know you know so because once the sludge breaks up and it sort of gets into the suspended state, and if you were happening to measure you happen to take a water sample on that day, right? Then the TSS parameter is actually going to be worse than it
Right.
was when it started, right? But just wait a few more days and it'll be below what you started, right? So it's just something that you need to be prepared for, because this is a completely nature-based approach, right? This is not an engineering.
Mechanical dredging. You're not,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
You're,
So you can actually, imagine doing this in a lake bed. You can essentially improve groundwater percolation because you have sort of, removed the sludge that's really preventing better recharge of the groundwater in the nearby aquifers. You've also increased the water holding capacity of the water body, and therefore, reducing the risk of flooding. So this has a lot of applications that could be of benefit to different communities.
yeah, and I'm aware of a pond that's sort of been solidified with sludge. Could you
Yeah.
use it on a dry base if you irrigated it or poured water over that? Have you done that? Or
I mean, this is a lake, right? And you have sludge. You're saying
it's
that?
really a drain, a sewage type of drain where the sludge has accumulated so that it's basically become
Yeah, I think
illiquid.
you just need to
Hard.
be patient. You just need to be patient and allow the bacteria to slowly but surely, chip away at that solid chunk of sludge. Bacteria need a surface to grow, and that sludge seems to give it there's a really nice surface there. Sounds like,
Right.
um,
One of the
and
big
as long as there's oxygen provided by diatoms, they'll be quite happy to stay there and make hay while the sun shines, so to speak.
Yes.
Arun, just 1 second. I just have to mention one point. So there is a limit to the amount of diatoms that can grow in a liter of water. So roughly it could be about 1 gram per liter per day. So depending on how much water is available, the diatom production would be linked to that. So in a almost dry lake bed, there will not be much water, so there will not be much diatom growth.
Okay, so you need the water, of course, for the diatom growth. Got it. Okay. But you could bring it in a liquid form to sit on top of that sludge, potentially, right? Or
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
asking.
yeah. I mean, so Bhaskar is, made a good point, right? So if you could bring in enough water to sustain a particular amount of diatom growth, then you could produce the required oxygen through photosynthesis to assist the bacteria to break up the sludge. But that water, and along with the other required nutrients, is needed to sustain that growth of diatoms, right? And
Got it. So yeah, seeing examples makes it
so
come
this
to
is a
life.
cheaper way. This is a cheaper way of treating that than mechanically having to hire workers and sort of have to drill or whatever, right? Use mechanical methods to remove that sludge. Right. So this is an example of a drain. We also did this is another, I'm going to show you another example. Sorry, okay, here it is. This is another drain which had 193 million liters of water flowing through it every day. This drain emptied itself into the river Ganga, which is flowing from the Himalayas.
Wow.
Through much of East and Central India into the Bay of Bengal. So in this drain, you had different kinds of agricultural runoff and industrial effluents mixing with sewage and forming the drain. What we showed in a matter of weeks was that if you look at the table there, that the BOD could be reduced by more than 80%, 85%. The COD came down by 91%. The TSS came down by about 91%. And the dissolved oxygen went up from 1.2 to about 6.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right. So imagine imagine how much oxygen was truly generated, right? So there was so much excess oxygen that it was able to bring all of that BOD down and have something spare, right? So you were able to show that after eliminating the sludge and eliminating the suspended organics, that you could have a sustained oxygen level of about 6 milligrams per liter, right? At the end of a 16-kilometer stretch of river, right? So we had yeah, so this was a 16-kilometer stretch in which you had about 193 million liters flowing every day. And we were able to demonstrate the reduction in all the key parameters, as well as the fecal coliforms, right? So the pathogenic bacteria, right?
That's
so that
huge.
came down by 96%, right? So this has tremendous potential when we think of impacting communities where there is no fresh water or clean water. A lot of underprivileged communities live and literally drink from these waters, right? So we can make a major difference in a very nature-based way to the body of water that they consume. So this is, as a result, once this was cleaned up, the animals and the birds were able to come back. We were able to restore the biodiversity of the water ecosystem, the results from this are published in a 2021 journal paper by the Indian Institute of Technology. So that there were a few academics from the university who were part of the team that did this project, and they were tasked by the government to validate the implementation and the effectiveness of our trial. So the results have been published in a journal paper that I can share with you.
Yeah, so we would like to attach that to this video. So
yeah, so it's a review paper. So it contains the results of this bioremediation study as well as others. But there's a table summarizing the results that I've just shown you here, as well as the sort of an assessment by the professors about the potential of this technology. Right?
Yeah.
So,
do you have a case study in the US or another country?
Yeah, so we did, yes, in the US we had a small study on a duck pond that was done there was a pond in New York near Hudson, I think near Hudson, Hudson, New York. The presence of blue-green algae and different algal species was tracked over a period of time for about a year. We have a small report in that context that was done by our implementation partner there. So we have, it's not a very detailed report where you have BOD and COD and TSS and everything being assessed, but we have a small write-up and a small study around treatment of a 3-acre lake in New York. So we have a little bit, not a lot. We have a lot of other customers who simply use our product. They don't necessarily analyze it and make studies out of it, but they continue to use it and love it. Yeah.
Right. Well, and it sounds like I don't know if there is a continued use need if you're going after, heavy sediment lakes and you clear them up. Do you put yourself out of business, Arun? Or as you said, if there are continual flows in, you just recommend a trickle of dosing?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, our goal is to support nature to take care of itself, right? So we want to sort of help bring that ecological balance and diversity back to the ecosystem. And I think that's sort of what we would all like, right? When we help someone sort of take care of themselves, that's the best thing that one can do, right?
Oh, agreed. And you are, I don't know if you've gone through some of the EPA or the approval processes here in the US. Do you have any validation or?
I don't have any, I don't really have a good idea about that. And that's something that we would like to learn more. I think Bhaskar knows more about some of the requirements. But we really need partners in the US who are willing to work with us to sort of take us to the next level.
And if you, let's just take, for instance, a 3-acre pond that a friend has right now that's totally filled with muck and sediment and algae. If they were to, so it's a 3-acre pond about 4 or 5 feet, maximum probably 5 feet deep at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know how many liters it would take, but the time it sounded like if they budgeted a 6-month period, and then what would be the approximate investment that they'd need to make?
I'm going to guess about $1,500.
For 1 liter per week?
Yeah, I was thinking about, she's saying her lake is about
3 acres is about 1 hectare.
3 acres and 5 feet. That's about 15 acre feet. And it's about 18 million liters. It's about 18 million liters. So about 8 liters of the product. Yeah.
Arun, 5 feet is the deepest point. So average depth would be like 3 feet. That's 1 meter.
So maybe we wrap up and we can talk. So
1 meter deep.
It sounds pretty reasonable. I guess you all are willing to talk to people and they should contact you at what address? Is it nualgi.com or?
Yep. ARUN1@nualgi.com. Yeah.
Okay. And they can also find it at nualgi.com.
There is a different contact address at the website. We're sort of revamping the website at the moment. So you can definitely reach out to someone at the company and they will pass on the information to me. Yeah.
But arun1@nualgi.com.
Yeah. And we will put you in touch with one of the distributors in the US from whom you can acquire the product. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you
Well,
wish to be a distributor yourself, then we can ship you directly as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So I'm at Global Waterworks, and we're really all about connecting experts and technologies and the people in need of solutions to try them out. We do have some pretty impressive solutions for algae blooms in the community, and people can find them. They've been validated by Wayne Carmichael, who's a leader of Wright's State. He was actually the founder of the International Conference on Toxic Cyanobacteria. So I think what you've shared, Arun and Bhaskar, is very exciting, and it is most interesting to me because you've sort of addressed the need for the nanobubble or the diffused oxygen through the diatoms themselves, emitting that. Which is
right. I mean, I think we are in complete agreement with Wayne and Carmichael, about the need and the importance of oxygen in remediation, right? And we're sort of doing, and I think the whole world sort of understands the utility of nanobubbles as well. So what we're trying to do is simply use nature to deliver that, right? And this is something that nature has been doing all along. And diatoms are not new at all to the scientific community, right? So they're a very important part of nature, and it's only in the last few decades that the ecology of ponds has shifted from being diatom dominated to green algae and blue-green algae dominated, right? So that's something that has happened with modern agricultural practices and industrial practices, right? So this, so I think we're just simply trying to bring nature back to where it was a few decades ago, right?
Yeah, I think if we can restore what we've sort of abused or left uncared for, it would be a beautiful thing. And another woman who's doing a lot of work in this area is Anita Dedic, Dedic. She is now a Fulbright scholar joining Cornell University, where she's hoping to both help the New York groups, but also her Bosnia-Herzegovina karstic springs, where they have extensive algae. And so she'll be interested in this. But we do have the Remediate Habs group within the Global Waterworks community, where we hope you will participate and be available to answer questions on this. And
absolutely. We're ready to engage in any way with anyone in the community. We would love to work with any and all people in the community and see how we can collaborate.
Yeah, excellent. And Bhaskar, you set this up. Was there any final word you had on this?
No, nothing much. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for seeking us out and being willing to share this. We will put up the recording within the community, and actually, first I'll have some of the individuals within our group sort of look at it, and we may set up a follow-up call for questions and potential trials. But thank you both again for your innovation. It's very encouraging to think we can work with nature and make a difference.